Yesterday at the computer lab, I left my watch. Do you have it?
I have it in Nixon or what?
Yeah, some guy that makes that next to me.
I forgot to bring it along.
Okay, it's fine.
I'm not going back to my office now.
No,
Maybe tomorrow morning, or I can leave it with our section in 508 of Monday.
508.
Yeah, Mrs. Kruger, and we can take it from her. So I'll do it early tomorrow morning because I'm lecturing about the whole day tonight. Afternoon, ladies and gents. Let me just see that I hope I'm online to the streaming group. I think so. I got the thumbs up, so now I'm disappointed. I think we must go home with the size of a class attendance. So I'll have to start throwing in some explicit tips for the test coming up in June. But I've got the reputation of giving tips, and at the end of the semester, it's a whole textbook in any case. Okay, ladies and gents, some feedback first on the scheduling ahead. As indicated yesterday in class, the lab session of next Wednesday is cancelled. I will be attending the inauguration of a new rector at that time. Then the week after this lab session on the 6th of May will change to a formal lecture, attendance compulsory. So I want for once to have a full venue when I lecture. That lecture will not be streamed, so for those listening into the streaming, that will be the first part of the labour market. On the 7th of May, there's no lecture. This session in 2 weeks' time will be cancelled. And then from there on, as per normal, with the last lab session in this last week of classes, to be decided what that test will be on, slightly a modification or adaptation of yesterday's test, probably a little bit easier, or if you studied well, it will be very easy. If you didn't study, it will be very difficult. There's only two things, either easy or not easy. Some feedback. This is a nice part of writing a test on the system. What you're going to see is a little graph of a number of students scoring the various marks. No names, no pectoral, purely I'm disappointed. I wanted the bulk of a class to be on this side. So only 5, ladies and gents, only 2.5% of a class managed to get 80% or higher. 5 students out of 200. Question 6 is totally correct. I asked what of the following properties are not part of a competitive market.
It's not that question, it's a question on whether perfect competition is perfectly elastic or not.
That is.
I think the machine switches questions.
You see, if you look at the person next to you's screen, the options were shuffled between different machines, so it's not the same options you have. Well, I will have a look at it again, but that is not question 6. It doesn't change the question numbers, it just changes the options within a question. Or else I couldn't manage, do an assessment of individual question performances. But I'll have a look. If the option is wrong, I will regrade, and hopefully the average will move higher. The 200 will get the average higher than 33.6%. Ladies and gents, this is 10 marks out of 400 of your final performance. So it's 2.5% of your final mark of economics 288. Just think about that. Standard deviation for those with high on statistics is 1.89. That means 65% of students lie within 1.89 marks of 33 point, or 3 point, whatever the average is, to the higher end and the lower end. That's the meaning of a standard deviation. Now for this, but I will check that and I'll get feedback next week, Tuesday. At that point, I got a query from some persons about my demand to stick to my full 50 minutes on a Tuesday. Apparently, it's too far for you to walk from the site of a campus to that site in 10 minutes' time. Ladies and gents, you're not on holiday, you get to move between lectures. If I can manage it, you can manage it. The following agreement, I will start 2 minutes past 10. Give you 12 minutes, so no time to waste along the way, and I will try to stop 3 minutes before the end of the session. Only on Tuesdays. On a Thursday, if you enter late, you can stay outside. You're just around this part of a campus, so there's no excuse for being late on a Thursday. I'm the one that has all the right to be late, because I'm coming from that side of a campus. So ladies and gents, give and take, eh? Agreement on Thursday sessions, or Tuesday session. Okay, the last little bit on perfect competition. Why is perfect competition a benchmark of a broad economic theory we're looking at? Perfect competition has so-called allocative efficiency, and there's a guy called Pareto, Italian. I hope you can believe we're Italians. He formulated this in 1906, 1907 in that vicinity. And he said, you are optimally producing in the economy or selling in the economy if you cannot manage to improve the well-being of the whole community or only one person by changing your price marginally up or down. Cannot improve the well-being of a total community by changing anything marginally. Therefore, the ultimate outcome will be better. Jy kan nie die totale welvaart van die samelewing verbeter deur 'n prys marginaal boontoe of ondertoe aan te pas. This can only happen if in the long run you produce, given that the price is given where marginal cost equals the price, and that's also where marginal cost equals marginal revenue. This is squarely in the properties of a perfect competition environment. Let me reiterate, this is a general principle that is valid in economics, but we say, okay, the perfect competition environment is a perfect example of Pareto optimality in the economy. Productive efficiency, the second property, basically states that in the long run, you must produce at the lowest average cost possible. And if you think back about the change of scale we handled towards the end of the last lecture, we said in the long run, you've got this envelope curve that's sort of like the source of envelope, everything in it. So you've got a lot of short run equilibrium positions, and the optimum long run will be at the minimum of your average variable cost. That is productive efficiency, producing the maximum output at the lowest possible cost. Two principles or benchmark ideas that fits within the framework of a perfect competitive market. And you can have a read, it's nicely described on page 177, 178 of a textbook. Questions on that? Now let's just sit back and relax for 1 second. There's only one question in your mind. Look at these products to follow. I do not claim any originality to this slide. The internet is a nice place to cut and paste stuff from. I'm not that clever to compile a slide like this. Keep on asking, what is the nature of a product, entry and exit behavior of firms? What market structure will you think will find a product like this? Perfect competition on one hand, maximum entry, free entry, exit, hell of a lot of firms, no influence over price, versus monopoly on the other side. We're going to look at it. In between oligopoly and monopolistic competition. 4 market structures, entry, exit, number of firms, very free on the perfect competition side, monopoly, property, single firm, entry and exit, very difficult. Competition, not really possible. Only one product, you cannot really buy something else. Canon camera, where will you find this? The industry, will it be in a perfect market or in a monopoly? Or in a monopolistic competition environment? Can be in all 3. The answer is big question mark. Cannot really say. If you look at one set of characteristics, you'll say this can be a product in a monopolistic market because there's no competition. All the products, it's a homogeneous product, but all other products differ from this, not heterogeneous products. So Canon can be in a monopolistic market, but it can also be in a oligopolistic market or in a monopolistic competitive market. The last one's probably the more reliable one to classify. Bananas. Banana farmers will tell you, look, my bananas are different to the person next to me. But really, I think this is an example of what you'll find in a perfect competition environment. Probably. To the side years ago, that's long before you were born, in the old South Africa with sanctions and boycotts, I visited France, in Paris, and we wanted to buy apples. Went to the street vendor, you see these nice apples, packed in Italian boxes, with a 2-a-day sticker still on the apple. 2 days, a trademark of South African apples. So it was exported from Roux to Italy. The farmer pays for that. Repackaged into Italian boxes, re-exported to France, and they're probably again repackaged in different boxes and exported to the United States. Who paid the price? The poor farmer back in South Africa paid all the cost. But if I removed the 2-a-day sticker, nobody would have known it comes from South Africa. In fact, in Paris, who the hell knows that 2 days is South African trademark? But this same principle applies. There's a lot of producers, you cannot really distinguish between the products. This, Mercedes-Benz CLK Coupe, I know it's 15 years old, but don't blame me, 20 years old. Can be in a monopoly market. Purely looking at the product, is there any real competition if you take the trademark into consideration? Answer is no, there is no competition. Mercedes-Benz can do whatever they want. But what about the BMW in the same type, or an Audi, or a Volvo? You suddenly realize it's not that easy to classify products as originating from a specific market structure. Vodka. Vodka drinkers will tell you in the bar will order Smirnoff. They will not order vodka. But vodka is a catch-all name. You can distinguish. The brandy drinkers will tell you, I don't like Olive Berg, I will drink this or that, or I will stay with that. Whiskey drinkers apparently even more brand name orientated. Who's brand name orientated in class? Female, you only, for what? What products? Cell phones. Whiskey. I can't afford whiskey, so I won't know. Sportswear. All women in class are probably brand orientated looking at clothing. No. Do you really, in bargain hunting, who buys from Edgar's Red Hanger sale? And you think it's a special, eh? Produced in the factory specially for that sale. After the sale, they take it back to the factory. It's packaged from the factory with a little sticker with a cross out of an old price and the new price. It's not a real sale. That's the way they fool us all, eh? Guitars, just think about the product and how difficult it is to classify the industry, but also think how easy it is to distinguish your product from the manufacturing next to you. You can have exactly the same product, but you just slap a different sticker on it and then it calls a different product. Like my cell phone. They call it a Vodafone, but there's nothing else on the Samsung at a quarter of the price. I just want to be able to read the emails, but it's still too small for me, so I'll stick to my computer. So let's look at the monopoly, ladies and gents. And we are now on page, in the slides, anywhere between page 180 and 188. If we look at the difference between the two market forms, this is so sort of forward-looking at what we're still going to do. In the middle, you've got the properties of a perfect competitive market. A lot of firms, a lot of buyers, homogeneous product, no market power. Market power means the ability to influence the market price. That is not the case in a perfect environment. You can enter and exit freely. Your goal is to maximize economic profit, and as you remember, as soon as you make an economic profit in a perfect market, that is the signal for new entrants to the market. Remember, it's free entry and exit, because you're making a above normal profit, therefore people can enter the market. That will force down the market price, and you will not make economic profit anymore. But that is still your goal. Same at the monopoly side. You're a price taker. You cannot really affect the price. On the right-hand side, then, there's corresponding properties of a monopoly. But the two most important things: substantial market power and the price setter. You determine the price. So the concepts of importance: market power, ability to influence the market price. To a certain degree, you can do that. You haven't got an absolute control over the market price, but you've got a large share of the control over the market price. Characteristics: one supplier of a product. Now think about it. Look at the Mercedes-Benz CLK. There's only one supplier of a Mercedes-Benz CLK. But if you rephrase it as a two-seater sports luxury German origin sports car, and suddenly you've got more than one supplier of a similar style of car. All depends how you phrase your one supplier of a product. Do you include the brand name or pure a description of? No close substitute for the product? There's no close substitute for my Vodafone cell phone. It's for you to prove me wrong. Something like that. Can you, that means if there's no close substitute, you can use that unique properties of your product to market it. charge a higher price because your cell phone's battery lasts 10 minutes longer than the person next to you's cell phone. That's the type of thing we're looking at. Protected by barriers to entry by new firms, you can formulate or get reasons to prohibit people from entering your market. A very good example is also going back many years. It's not the case anymore. South African breweries, now SAB Miller, was the only beer manufacturer in South Africa. You didn't get in the 60s, in the early 70s of the previous centuries, beer like Heineken and all of these imported stuff, Windhoek Lager, etc. You didn't get that in the market. Then the late Dr. Louis Light started a beer factory called Kronenbrouw 1308 in Joburg, and he was competition, remember? Only supply. He was competition for SA breweries. In the back of his mind, he had only one thing in mind, and that is to make a hell of a lot of money out of SA breweries. Started with beer and came in the market at a lower price than SA breweries. What did SA breweries do? They started a price war, cutting prices, lower and lower. Because they had the monopoly power. They had the power to control the market. So it ended up in court, and Louis Light graciously conceded. He failed, and he sold his company to SA Breweries. And he reached exactly what he wanted, to make a lot of money out of SA Breweries. Introduced some competition to the market, sold his product, and the agreement was SA Breweries must keep his brand on the market because he sold his company. He disappeared within a day from the market. Louis Light had no intention to prosecute or institute legal action against him again. Nowadays, you see different manufacturers of beer in the country as well. What are the barriers to entry? Exclusive ownership of a resource. We ladies will all recognize that. It's the only real supply of diamonds in the world, ladies and gents. So your reason for high diamond prices is basically because the beers own about all the diamond mines in the world. So they can manipulate the market price. They can tell you this diamond that you picked up in Kimberley Streets is worth nothing and give you 10 cents for it because it's illegal to have uncut diamonds in your possession, and then they sell it for 10 million rand. Exclusive ownership of a resource. Can you now see why the ANC government feels that all the natural resources, the resources under the ground, gold, etc., must be owned by the government, or as they call it, the people? Makes sort of sense. But an individual is not supposed to benefit from the riches of a country in general. The only downside of that is, ladies and gents, if a government owns it, who's going to pay for losses in the mining industry? Let me rephrase that. Who in this class is pro-nationalization of mines? Okay, don't have to, okay, there. Why?
Well, even we lost a very good question, why. You said who's going to pay if, say, things go wrong. Currently, we are paid, even if things go wrong, and we don't know the way the financial sector is working, the risk has been on everyone. So it doesn't matter. It happens.
But who's going to, if a mine worker still in a trade union and government owns the mines, demand 50% salary increases, and they award it, and then suddenly the gold price goes not through the roof but through the floor, and they're operating at a loss. Who's going to pick up that loss?
Well, speaking up now, because there's a mine that will make a system where it's splitting.
If a mine now makes a loss, they go out of business. That is strictly speaking. But if a government owns the resource, there's no reason to go out of business. You're going to pay taxes someday in the future. Our tax money pays the losses. So in that sense, we have to look at, this is purely a question I ask, who must own the resource? And who's responsible to manage it profitably? It's like Eskom, you know. But that's one of the reasons the barrier to entry is this sole ownership of a resource. So you will protect that right to produce or be the owner producer. Legal barriers? Government will tell you there's only one electricity producer in the country. They decided. You can try your best, you won't. Did you hear last week they brought on stream a 100 megawatt wind farm on the west coast? It's Eskom based, they produced it. In time, below cost. Ndupi, Kusile, at this stage 6 and 9 years behind schedule. But all the other wind farms in the country, the individuals, privates erecting those, they battle to get licensed to put their electricity into the national grid. Government grant rights, it's sort of the same, flip side of the same thing, legal barriers, and you've got the right to do it. Government can say, yes.
I was working in the United States. They also believe they have also private companies that supply the energy. But then who owns the grid?
That is a good question to ask. Who owns the distribution grid? There was an idea in South Africa, let Eskom only manage the distribution grid and the private sector do the generating of electricity. I think in the United States there's more than one electricity company in a city or the state, and by ownership cartel, in that sense they spread the signal. I think it's that principle that applies in South Africa. Grid, electricity grid is Eskom's responsibility till it feeds into a local authorities distribution network. Then it becomes a local authorities problem. So it's also a sharing of a grid. A license from government. Let's think about licensing, ladies and gents. Liquor stores needs a license to be able to sell liquor. We're staying in a residence. All the residences years ago had their own private bars, especially in the men's residence. You go for a rugby practice, and then you have a quick stop at the bar before you go to study and have supper, and it stopped in the bar, and from there they crawled to the rooms, late at night or early the next morning. That was stopped abruptly on campus because of no liquor license. The legal framework changed, where every residence had to apply for its own liquor license. Before that, the university liquor license took care of everything. Licensing, prohibit entry, allow for super profits. Patents and copyright. There's an artist in town. Anybody heard of Portje before? Kerkstraat, Church Road, see the red teapot art gallery. Big guy, painting abstract paintings. He was a marketing student on this campus. He registered his purple trees, copyrighted, patent. Prosecuted 2 people that copied his trees in their paintings. Now he became very rich. You protect your right to produce. Telkom is not anymore the sole landline supporter, but they benefited from this framework. Natural barriers to entry, economies of scale in costs, natural monopoly. In short, you can have a read in the textbook. It means if you produce the maximum that is demanded, you still on the negative sloping part of your average cost curve. So you can increase production at even a lower cost, but there's no demand for it. So a natural monopoly can be, let me flash this, Eskom. If I manage to maintain their generating capacity, etc. So Eskom is producing, I don't know, they're supposed to produce at much lower price they're actually producing at. But if you pay people very high salaries, and the salary a person earns is not equal to the productivity of a person, then you get this situation we've currently got. And then import restrictions, ladies and gents. It's not part of the slides, I added this later. How do you protect your domestic industry? By slapping tariffs on imported stuff. That means you give the imported stuff you make a bit more expensive than the local stuff, so the local producer will supply the total market. And I hope you recognize this. It looks like a chicken. There's a current dispute going on between South Africa and the United States for dumping of chicken. There's a tariff on imported pieces of chicken from the United States. The local producers say we cannot compete, so we need a higher tariff. The Americans say, cut that tariff, remove it or else. We're not going to renew the AGOA international trade agreement between South Africa and the United States. You're going to suffer, South Africa, if you don't get your chicken producers in line. Is it because the chicken producers are making exorbitant economic profits or what? What can you tell about? But can you see the list of possible reasons why you will have limited number of competitors in the market? So let's look at the price setting strategies. Two options. If you've got a single price monopoly, you charge everybody the same price. Very ethical. You don't overcharge. Forget about the fact that they're in any case making an economic profit. You just don't overcharge people. Everybody pays the same price. Versus you charge different people different prices for the same product. And we call that price discrimination. There's three forms of that. First degree price discrimination. You discriminate according to units. You look at the individual and try and negotiate the price with the individual, like a flea market, ladies and gents. People at the flea market want you to negotiate the price. I had the privilege to visit India, and they want to sell everything to you on the street. You can't move around. But they are totally disgusted if you are prepared to pay the price they ask initially. They want you to negotiate the price. So I'm not very good at negotiating, so I will just tell my wife, pay, let's go. She will say, no, what the hell, let's start negotiating. So I was prepared to pay 100 Rand, she gets away with 5 Rand. It's price discrimination, ladies and gents. It's not a fixed price. Second degree, different prices according to the quantity that you buy. 1 can of beer, 6 case. You see it every day around. So those that can afford only 1 can of beer pay per unit more than those that can afford buying more. Third degree amongst buyers, Telkom peak and off-peak rates, Vodacom, MTN, all of these guys have got differentiated rates they charge. If you cannot, you're not at home, you've got a landline from Telkom at home, so they charge you less at night, more during the day. So different prices for different consumers, and the driving factor is the price elasticity of demand. The less elastic the demand for a product, the more probable it is that you can charge differentiated prices. The more elastic it is, the less probable that you will charge different prices. Think back to chapter 6 of the book. Very elastic price means if you increase the price of a very elastic product, but decrease in your total revenue will be more. If you charge a higher price, percentage-wise, if you increase by 10%, the total revenue will go down more than 10%. In an inelastic product, if you increase by 10%, total revenue will go down with less than 10%. And that is what people use in a monopoly environment. So let's look at the pricing. Sorry, this is a bit dark. I want to hide something from you. In a perfect competition, price is equal to marginal revenue. Now I claim that price will be higher than marginal revenue in a monopoly. Now, ladies and gents, looking at price and marginal revenue, monopoly is a price setter. The demand for the monopolies output is equal to the market demand. Remember, in the perfect competition environment, the demand for a specific producer's output is not equal to the market demand. You have to sum all the individual producers' demand to find the market demand. In the monopoly's case, whatever the demand is, that is also the market demand. And then the law is valid. Think back to your demand curve in the first part of a semester. If you want to sell more, you have to reduce the price. Think about it. Perfect competition, price is given versus now you've got a variable price. And me as supplier can control that price. Total revenue is still price times quantity. In a perfect competition environment, the price is given, you only had influence on the quantity. Now the price determines the quantity you're going to sell. So you've got two variable factors. Marginal revenue is still calculated as that extra revenue for selling an extra unit. No different to what we had in the perfect competition environment, except in a perfect competition environment, the marginal revenue equals the average revenue equal the price. In this case, marginal revenue will be different to the price and different to the average revenue. So for a single price monopoly, that means no price discrimination. I charge everybody the same price. And that's a very rare beast in the monopoly environment, to find a single price monopoly. You will always charge the price higher than marginal revenue. Because you control the price, you can ask people more for it. And this slide then is similar to figure 11.1 that you find in the textbook. This is just a bit nicer. It's got animation in it and just works nicely. Demand, typical demand curve. Remember, the demand for the product is also the market demand. Say one demand curve. Quantity of haircuts per hour. This is not it's not a unisex salon. It's probably a gents salon where you say how many you can do in 1 hour. And then the price and the marginal revenue. So if I do 2 at a split in price, now you read your price from the demand curve, negative sloping. At a high price, low quantity. So total revenue equals price times quantity, 16 times 2. That is 32. Not in your left ear. We increase the demand. People are only prepared to do more haircuts, the price comes down. So total revenue increased from 32 to 42. Do you agree? 14 times 3. Use your fingers, count. Use a pocket calculator. Use it up here. What is a change? To a revenue loss. This is a strange concept to grasp. At 2 units, I made $32, 32 Rand. If the units increase, the price comes down for all units. It's not a stepwise approach. So for 3 units, the price is 14, and I lose that 2 times the price difference. That's the $4 loss in revenue. To keep the quantity fixed, what happens if the price comes down? That's your loss. But what do you gain, ladies and gents? You gain that portion. The extra unit times the price. So the net gain is $4. And that's the definition of marginal revenue. The increase in revenue because of the extra unit that you sell. Now, if you put it on the graph, the marginal revenue will be somewhere down there, sort of in between. Just wait so that the graph works out nicely. We do it in between the 2 quantities. It's the increase from 2 to 3. Let me show the people that look at the streaming as well. The increase from 2 to 3 is sort of in the middle. And we've worked out that marginal revenue is that difference. Same, look at the difference between 42 and 32, the total revenue change. So we've got a marginal revenue 1 point, and now we add the marginal revenue curve. Looks like that. Because the price is decreasing as you increase the quantity. You increase the quantity haircuts per hour. To be able to do that, you decrease the price. So the extra income is every time a little bit lower than the previous level that you made. And that is then similar to figure 11.1. And I will probably have to carry on next week with this. But this is Thursday, so I've got time till 10 to 4. Okay, ladies and gents, let's move a little bit further. The elasticity I will rather keep shut. Ladies and gents, I already expressed the idea of elasticity and how total revenue reacts to a price increase or decrease. Box 11.2. Here's your demand curve for the same story and your marginal revenue. You can see the marginal revenue start decreasing as you increase the quantity and the price. And on the top, you'll see this, the elastic part. Remember the elasticity, the last section Olivia did with you. The elasticity changes as you move along with down the demand curve. From relatively elastic to unitary elasticity there in the middle to inelastic on that side. On the inelastic side, you start making a marginal loss and not a marginal increase in your revenue. There's positive in revenue, there's a loss in total revenue. That goes hand in hand with this little graph that you find in figure 11b on page 183. Total revenue is increasing as long as your demand curve is relatively elastic. You reach a maximum point where elasticity is equal to unitary elasticity, and soon as you move in the inelastic bit of your demand curve, total revenue will start decreasing. That then takes care, and in box 11.2, they refer back to chapter 6 as well. One more slide. 2 more probably. The mathematical bit, just for interesting sake, just look at this equal distances. So on a horizontal basis, if you look between the demand and marginal revenue, horizontally, that distance will be equal distance between the axis and the marginal revenue, and then between marginal revenue and demand curve. So it intersects the horizontal axis with equal portions in between. Not necessary to worry any more about this, just this little bit at the bottom. Marginal revenue slope is twice the slope of a demand curve. Those that want to, you can have a look at this. The second bit we have to look at is output. We will still produce where output equals marginal revenue equals marginal cost. And I think that is probably a good point to stop. I will start on Tuesday with this bit. And please note, there will be some more slides because I will get further. So 2 minutes past 10 Wednesday morning, I will start. And I'll stop 3 minutes before 10 to 11. Thanks, ladies and gents.